La deuxième chose que je voudrais dire, c'est que la situation du camp d'Ashraf, qui devient de plus en plus difficile en raison des liens, comme ça a été évoqué très clairement, entre le régime des mollahs et le gouvernement irakien, fait peser un danger, un grave danger, dans les toutes prochaines semaines sur les habitants du camp d'Ashraf. Le camp d'Ashraf, aujourd'hui, représente à la figure du monde la résistance aux mollahs en Iran. Le soutien aujourd'hui aux habitants du camp d'Ashraf est donc un devoir international pour les démocrates du monde entier. Il faut aujourd'hui peser de tout notre poids par rapport aux chefs d'État et de gouvernement qui vont se réunir, ou aux ministres qui vont se réunir demain au niveau européen, pour dire nous n'accepterons pas que le 31 décembre, le régime irakien puisse démanteler ce camp et massacrer les habitants d'Ashraf. Nous sommes ici aujourd'hui pour dire que solennellement, nous ne sommes pas simplement là pour élever une protestation, mais pour trouver une solution pour l'ensemble des habitants d'Ashraf, pour dire très clairement que pour nous, nous demandons une application du droit international, du respect des personnes et la reconnaissance des habitants d'Ashraf comme réfugiés politiques à travers le monde et plus particulièrement en Europe. Hier, j'étais à La Haye, à la Cour internationale, le tribunal international. Peut-être qu'un jour, si l'irréparable se produit, il faudra traduire devant la Cour internationale les responsables de cette situation.
Today, as some of my colleagues have already said, time is of the essence. For almost a year now, my colleagues from the U.S. and I have given the facts and stated the reasons why the MEK should not be on the Foreign Terrorist Organization list. Those facts were as valid a year ago as they are today, and yet our lethargic State Department has failed to act. And lest we forget, that is the excuse that the Iraqis used this past April to invade the camp and massacre the unarmed citizens living in Camp Ashraf. The United States has many tools in its kit bag. We have the military, we've got information, we've got diplomatic, we've got the economic tool as well as the military. And if we're not going to protect the residents of Camp Ashraf with our military force, then certainly we need to heed their requests for assistance and use our economic tools. And if the Iraqi government is not going to comply, if they're not going to guarantee the safety of the residents of Camp Ashraf, then we ought to quit. We and the EU combined ought to quit pouring billions of dollars of aid into the Maliki government. It is an international community responsibility to use that economic tool. And both we, U.S. and the EU, have a powerful tool there, but it takes political courage to use it. I join Mr. Stevenson in saying that both the U.S. and the EU must quit hiding behind the lame excuse that Iraq is a sovereign nation and therefore free to massacre the residents of Camp Ashraf. We must stand together, and we must declare in no uncertain terms that this is totally unacceptable behavior which will not be tolerated. And so the second thing I would say that is needed after taking the MEK off the list is that when President Maliki meets with President Obama on 12 December, President Obama must show the political courage to use that powerful economic tool to demand that Maliki honor the United States' commitment to protect the residents of Camp Ashraf, even in the face of the Iranian resistance which Maliki will face.
that economic pressure is absolutely needed. I have already said that in July here at this conference. It is unacceptable that we as European taxpayers continue to pay for these people in Baghdad as long as they do not respect basic human rights. So we have to stop the payments for Iraq immediately and tell them we will not start that again until this matter is satisfactorily and totally solved. The government in Iraq has clearly shown that it cannot be trusted. And this is a message from my friend Antonio Guterres, whom we're going to meet Friday in Geneva. This is a message from Mr. Kopler, whom we're going to see next week here in Brussels. They should have no illusions. They should have no illusions. This government is totally under the influence of the mullah regime in Iran and has no free choice in this matter. And promises are absolutely worthless. The only thing that can help is a strong presence, including a military presence of the United Nations and a negotiated process of solving that humanitarian problem under international monitoring and protection. Thank you very much.
How did we get here? This is a terrible moral embarrassment and a moral failing for both the United States and the European Union. You cannot afford not to act. I will concede that the United States has more culpability in this matter. That is, the United States will bear the largest part of the blame, short of Maliki himself, if harm comes to those in Ashraf. We have an obligation and we have the means, even while we still have troops on the ground in Iraq, to stop this from happening. But Europe must lead the way morally, as you have for some time in the area of human rights. Tomorrow's meeting of the foreign ministers cannot just be another exercise in debating. There has to be real action that comes out of that meeting. And you do have the power, not just to condemn and send more letters. You have the power to make it clear that you will impose, to seek, as the European Union, sanctions against Iraq for any violence that might come to the residents of Ashraf. It is not enough to impose sanctions on the masters of Iraq, which are the mullahs in Iran. We have to impose sanctions on Iraq itself. The campaign for human rights has gone on too long and too far for us to stop now. This is a deep human rights issue. We have an obligation to do this. The European Union was founded in response to one of the greatest mass murders in history. And now the United States and Europe have an obligation to act together. The President of the United States, as you may remember, received the Nobel Peace Prize a little over 2 years ago. He himself was very modest in accepting that. He said something like, one day, this is a little early, I hope to earn this. Well, in 31 days, we are going to find out if the President of the United States has earned his Nobel Peace Prize. I have never heard of a Nobel laureate who stood aside while mass murder took place. When the President sees Prime Minister Maliki in less than 2 weeks, he must not ask Prime Minister Maliki, he must tell Prime Minister Maliki that the deadline will be extended until every last resident of Ashraf is safely out of Iraq, and that there will be no mass murder in Ashraf.
My fear is, as was already expressed, we can't have any kind of trust in the Iraq government. It's not only Iran, it's at the same time Iraq. And the question could and should be, what did you learn from all your catastrophes in your own country? But that perhaps will not help us. But in any case, and it was said several times, this date is unacceptable. You can't deal with human rights on primarily a pragmatic approach. This has to be a message for all of us here, but also outside, because we are more and more used to speak about human rights, but not to practice them, and to see how certain people are really violated, tortured, killed. And so the case of the Camp Ashraf is much more than only this camp in a special situation. But with this camp, we demonstrate if we develop strengths or more readiness for compromise in a better or not in a good way. And it's very decisive if you give up or if you not give up. And therefore I think we are all challenged, European Union, United States, United Nations.
Now today, the test is before us again. And it's not just a test for the people of Camp Ashraf, although clearly it's their lives who are on the line. It's really a test for all humanity who now knows what is about to happen and who has a choice today through the foreign ministers tomorrow and through the visit of Nouri al-Maliki to the United States on December 12th to clearly express that we will not compromise with evil.